According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are some 321,000 financial advisors in the United States, and fully half of them are earning less than $100,000 a year. In this video, I'm going to detail for you the 8 differences I've found having been on both sides of this number myself and also having worked with thousands of financial advisors. So let's jump right into it. The first difference between these advisors under 1,000 and the advisors over 1 million, which is probably less than 1% of all advisors, so roughly 3,000 of the 300. Number one is that top group invests huge amounts of money in their own success. Typically, we're seeing professional development spends in roughly the 10% range. In other words, 10% of their take-home income, or an amount equal to 10%, goes towards professional development. This is coaching, this is conferences, this is classes, this is spending time around top performers. They are investing incredibly heavy in this. Now, how they invest in it can vary depending on their learning style. Some advisors like myself read voraciously. I read 30 or 40 books a year. I have a collection of hundreds of books. That's one of my favorite ways of learning. Another advisor I know who's a multi-million-dollar producer loves to attend conferences. He doesn't like to read things. That's just his preference. And so he attends conferences, and every conference he goes to, he brings his phone, and any session he goes to, he records the entire session. And then on the plane ride home, he listens to the entire session again to make sure that he takes away all of the action items he possibly can. So those top advisors, that top 1%, those clearing over $1 million versus the bottom half, they invest just ruthlessly in their own progress, in their own personal development. Difference number 2 is that those top performing advisors are solely focused on learning from people that are doing a better job than them. So they have this incredible filter. They don't care at all what is popular. They don't care at all about who is speaking on stages. They're only interested in learning from people that are doing something better than them. Now, those people may also be popular and they may also be speaking on stages, but if you're an advisor at a certain level, you want to be spending all of your time learning from people that are at that next level. Now, what's interesting is they're also incredibly humble about this. So despite having this enormous filter and making a lot of money, they're going around saying, great, I need to find someone who's doing this better than I am, and I need to figure out how to spend time with that person. Difference number 3 is that they're doing more reps than everyone else. This one should come as no surprise. They're simply making more phone calls. They're doing more client meetings. They're doing more practice sessions. They're doing more networking. They're doing more reps than everyone else, because at the end of the day, this is a numbers game. And let's say the number is that you have to talk to 100 people for one of them to say yes. You might be able to, through a lot of training and skills, get that number down to 70 to 1 or 50 to 1, or heck, maybe even 10 to 1. But you still have to get all those reps in. And so those top advisors are doing far more repetitions than anyone else. Difference number 4, the top advisors understand that how they deliver the message is more important than the message itself. In other words, they understand that being able to communicate a topic is more important than the topic itself. Now, this is not to say they don't understand the topic, and it's not to say they don't have a deep technical knowledge. They almost always do. But what they have in spades versus the average advisor is an ability to communicate this to their clients in a way that they take action. And their communication is so effective, it can almost seem simplistic. It can almost seem like they're some kind of like Dave Ramsey, aw shucks, I wanted to tell you about this story. But they have incredible knowledge and they're able to communicate it. Those lower achieving advisors, the sub 100,000, they fall into this trap of thinking, if I just get another designation, if I just understood more nuance of the tax code, then I would be a successful advisor. But the reality is you have to be able to communicate it. It's your words that will make you rich, as the old saying goes, not your knowledge. Number 5, the top advisors are ruthless about not playing office. What do I mean? If you go visit a top advisor in his or her office, they're not sitting there scrolling LinkedIn. They are not sitting there scrolling the Wall Street Journal or sending text messages back and forth to other advisors. When they're in the office, they're getting those reps in, or they're learning, end of story. Like that's all they're willing to do. They spend all of their day. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank talks about this. He says the signal versus the noise ratio. How much time do you spend overwhelmed by the noise versus acting on the signal? And he gives the ratio of 80% signal, 20% noise. He said, having worked with Steve Jobs, that was the ratio that Steve Jobs used. And so as an advisor, we need to spend at least 80% of our day in that, what he called the signal space. That's meeting with clients, that's meeting with prospects, that's prospecting, that's professional development. The other 20%, compliance and meetings and other things like those, some of those have to happen, but they're just relentless in their focus on doing those things that will move them forward. Number 6, every top advisor I've met runs some variation of surge meetings. We've talked about surge meetings in other videos, but the concept of surge is that we're doing our meetings, our client review meetings, on an intentional schedule, not when they come up. This means I have designated weeks or days when I'm meeting with clients, and I have designated weeks and days when I'm not meeting with clients. And the amateur advisor, the advisor doing less than 100K, thinks it's the same number of meetings. After all, if I have 100 meetings in a year, why does it matter if I do them all in a 3-week period or if I do them hit and miss throughout the year? It makes all of the difference in the world because we're spending our time focused on a single activity, which then frees up an enormous amount of time to do prospecting and do other activities. Number 7 difference between the top advisors and the bottom advisors. Again, we're talking about the top 1% of advisors and the bottom 50% of advisors, which is a 10x income difference or more, is that the top advisors charge fees that are relative to their value, and they're not bashful about it. They just say, and we've talked about this in other videos, they say, hey, my fee is X, hire me or don't. They don't try to compete on fees. They don't try to negotiate on fees. They understand the value of what they do, or at least they have enough confidence in their value that they're able to charge a fee relative to that value, and they get over their head trash about raising their fee. Number 8 is that they practice. I recently met with an advisor who makes, he's definitely the top 1% of advisors, gets most of his clients through seminars, through seminar events. And this gentleman, it's actually multiple gentlemen I've seen do this, they record themselves presenting it and they watch it and they look at their close rate and they say, hey, did this way or this way work better? And they're practicing it again and again and again. My good friend Micah Shalansky that I do the Perfect RA with, when he creates content for his channel, Plan Your Federal Retirement, he often records 5 versions of it before he finds one that works. Does he enjoy it so much that he's creating 5 versions? No. He'd rather not create any versions. He'd rather spend his day playing Office, but he understands that that's what it takes to get in that top 1% of advisors. Now, those are the 8 differences, and it brings up this interesting question. Is there a limit to the number of advisors that can be in the top 1%? Well, technically, yes. Like mathematically, the 1% can only be 1%, can be 3,000. Is there a limit of advisors that can do $1 million north? No, I don't think so. Like I've yet to meet an advisor, and I've met over 1,000, thousands at this point, I've coached over 1,000, that I thought this guy or this gal just doesn't have what it takes. What I have found is plenty of advisors who just aren't willing to do the work because it is hard work. I was in that spot for a lot of years before I committed to doing the hard work. So anyone can hit that milestone. It's just if you're willing to do those reps. So go back through this video, look at these 8 differences between the bottom half of advisors and the top 1%. If you found this video helpful, there's so much more of this great content. If you like and subscribe, you of course check out my book, Delivering Massive Value, to which there is a link in the comments below. And until next time, happy planning.